Then, what kind of movie is Laputa? I think it's a perfect version of the Castle of Cagliostro. An earnest princess escapes a villain by herself, and a man saves her. The only difference is that Pazu saves her instead of Rupan. But either way, a man saves her. But the bad guys come to get her back and steal her. Then the main character gives her up momentarily. Which you can see in scenes like where Rupan doesn't know that Clarice was drug-dosed and thinks, oh well, it can't be helped. Or Pazu says, Shida told me to forget about Laputa, and Dola scolds her. But afterwards, they both fight together with their colleagues, and at the end, they discover a ruin of ancient metropolis, which would be submerged metropolis from the Roman Empire, for the Castle of Cagliostro, and a huge castle in the sky for Laputa. So, they resemble each other so closely in terms of their plots. And that's because Miyazaki had always wanted to make something similar to a British classic children's literature called Treasure Island by Stevenson. United Kingdom is like the birthplace of children's literature, and Treasure Island is the classic of classics. All works by Miyazaki are basically adaptations of the main plot of Treasure Island. So, it'll be easier to understand his works if you compare them to Treasure Island and think like, so, who would be the equivalent of Captain Silver in this work? But, at the same time, Miyazaki had his strong anti-feeling against works like Mobile Suit Gundam, Space Battleship Yamato, and his own work, The Castle of Cagliostro. Because, according to Miyazaki, they all set elites as main characters. Each of them has special skills. For example, Rupan is a genius thief. But for Miyazaki, even Amuro, the main character of Gundam, is a subject of criticism. We'd think that an ordinary boy like Amuro broke the image of a typical noble and athletic main character in Japanese anime. But Gundam appeared to Miyazaki as an anime where all the main character does is act cool while receiving help from a machine, like the donkey in the lion skin. So, Laputa to Miyazaki was an antithesis to Gundam or Rupan. However, this troubled him later on. He wrote on the proposal, I want to make it a story about an ordinary boy. But then he later realized that having an ordinary boy as the main character wouldn't give him any plot. I mean, the villain called Colonel Muska bosses his military around and works for the Information Bureau of the government. And Dola, his opponent, is a super strong pirate lady. Then here comes a 12 to 13-year-old boy who just tries hard to save the girl. How would he win? Miyazaki went, what am I gonna do now? I thought, then, why did you say such a thing in the first place? Above all, when Miyazaki wrote the first draft and thought, I think this is good, and showed it to Suzuki and Takahata, they scolded him. They said, what's this? You made Muska the main character. Sure, I see you put a little boy called Pazu as the main character. This won't make a blood-tingling anime movie like our slogan says, but a glory and failure of young Muska. A boy who believed in the legend of Laputa, which he had heard from his parents, and thought, one day, I'm gonna rebuild the civilization of the people of Laputa. He tries so hard to find and kidnap a girl who succeeds Laputa's imperial bloodline. The girl hates him, so he tries to use words to attract her. But another young boy steals her. He goes through crap until he finally thinks he gets the glory. Then at the very end, the girl betrays him, so he fails and loses everything. What a good story about Muska. But is that what you want? Miyazaki said, no! I mean, that original plot is pretty interesting, isn't it? So, what I'm trying to say here is setting an ordinary boy as a main character makes story making pretty difficult. That difficulty influenced the story until the end, where two of them put their hands together and said Balse, which is a word of doom. I just said a word of doom, but what they actually do there is a double suicide. They tried to solve the situation by dying together. which was what Miyazaki did in Nausicaa, or what Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato did for the climax. Both were a kind of suicide attack. So that's what I want to analyze in today's lecture. I want to answer a question, then why did they end up with the same kind of climax? But that doesn't mean Laputa is the same as Nausicaa or Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato, in which the story ends with main characters sacrificing their lives. As I said, I've broken down the seminar about Laputa into 6 sections, and I want to talk about this in the last section, which I titled Growth of the Anime Characters and Hayao Miyazaki. Anyway, Laputa is a strange movie. Oh, by the way, I just said there would be 6 parts, but I didn't even get to the first. I'm about to. Laputa is a strange movie. It only made around $4,600,000 in the box office. It was not a crushing defeat, but also not a good number. But then, they sold many movie merchandise. Totoro sold most goods among all Ghibli movies, but Laputa comes next. Laputa and Nausicaa come after Totoro, and then Kiki and Porco Rosso follow. Instead of being a blockbuster, Laputa became a movie which people still love. Many say Laputa is my most favorite Ghibli movie. I think I also like Laputa the most, and